The purpose of this video is to just, I've been thinking about a few things that I want to share with the world as I roll out not just this YouTube channel, but really, why did we start Wise Leadership Solutions? Why did I choose to get involved with the Junior ROTC program in my retirement after the military service? What is it that's caused me to want to not only share my own personal insights when it comes to leadership and working with teenagers and working with parents, but what is it about my life that's just got me to the space where I really feel like I've got something to offer people, right? And so today what I want to talk about is, why did I drop out of high school? What I'm going to cover is, the things that caused me to drop out of high school is not very much different than what kids are dealing with today, and really adults throughout the world, right? When they're going to deal with challenges in their work, whether they're dealing with challenges in their family, a lot of the same things that drew me into the challenging life of a high school dropout at the young age of 16 years old are the same challenges that people deal with every day today. And so I just want to kind of recap the things that cause me challenges, as well as be proof that I can communicate with people that are in these same challenges spaces, because I've been there, right? It's not just something that I reminisce on and I have no experience. No, I actually lived that life, right? I unfortunately had to go through those journeys as a young man, and it gives me the ability to connect with people across the board. So, let's go back. When I was a young person, I moved a lot, right? I think everyone for the most part knows. Maybe I'll do a video about this in the future, but I was born to a teenage mother. She very thankfully put me up for adoption. I got the opportunity to go to a great family. But part of my family life, my dad really wanted to change his current position after the military, because he had gotten into the medical field. And my dad really wanted to get involved with computers. It was the 80s. So he decided that he would no longer be an emergency medical technician, and we would go to Arizona, where my dad would become a computer tech guy. And so he went to DeVry, spent a couple of years doing DeVry Technical Education University, whatever that is, working 2 jobs at the same time and taking loans, which is where I learned that maybe it's not the best idea to go into debt for education, because maybe it will not pay off. And throughout, from kindergarten until 7th grade, the result of my parents' decisions was that we would move to a different school every grade. So essentially every year I was the new kid in a new school. Okay. Always was good with academics, never had a problem with school, just was always new. So if I had a problem, it was probably getting socialized with people that would know me. And I am jealous of people that get the opportunity to grow up in one place, right? I hear my kids in my classroom talk about how they were all in kindergarten together, and now they're all in 10th grade together. And my sons have the same experience because, of course, they moved around a lot with me in the military. So by the time I got to middle school or junior high school, I really was not super connected with education, just because I kept having to reinvent myself every school. When I got to junior high school, I remember 7th grade, my dad, and where I grew up at, state of Utah, in junior high school was 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. So I went to 7th grade, fresh orientation, whatever it was, and my dad was with me. And I remember my dad told me, as they were talking about colleges, because they were talking about what class we were going to be to graduate high school. And it was only going into 7th grade, and they were already giving us that level of intensity, right? Like, hey, you're going to be the high school graduating class of 1994, or whatever that year was going to be for me. So get ready. We're excited to have you come into our junior high school. And my dad told me, he said, Gare, if you do not get straight A's and get a full scholarship, I'm sorry, but I have no way for you to go to college. And I don't know if that was meant to inspire me or he was just being honest with me, but how I took that was, well, then I guess I'm not going to college, because I just did not have that level of commitment at 7th grade, nor did I believe that a college education at that level, at that age, at 12 years old, was that important, right? So I remember being 7th grade when I pretty much checked out of the educational institution. So the number one factor that caused me to drop out of high school was a loss of focus. right? And I could contribute it directly to that conversation. When I look back on it, when I think about it, I had been a straight A student up until that point in time. But from that moment going forward, I was just like, you know what? If I'm not going to college, what really does any of this matter, right? And I completely lost focus at what I was supposed to be going to school for. I didn't really care that it was supposed to be for education, right? I didn't really care for these other reasons. I just thought it was go to high school, graduate, and then go to college. And now all of a sudden I had this, what I thought was a requirement that I didn't really care to have to fulfill. And there you go. So that was number one. Number two, the number two factor, which feeds directly into this next part, was I had a loss of belief for my future, right? I just felt like, okay, well, if I'm not going to go to college because I'm not going to get a full ride scholarship and I'm not going to be able to get that opportunity, then I might as well start figuring out other things, right? I might start getting into construction, concrete. I don't know. I really didn't know. At 12 years old, I had no idea what that would look like. I knew my dad worked nights every night at the emergency room for the VA hospital. I'd seen my dad working 2-3 jobs all his life. I knew I didn't want that. I knew I wanted access to money, but I also just didn't care enough to really think about it, right? So just being honest, it was, right, I just had a loss of faith in my future, and I didn't really believe there was something more to it than just live your life and hope it all works out. Right. The third thing, and this is another thing that was a gut check when I look back on my life, I had a loss of faith in myself. Right? Why did I not believe at 12 years old that I was capable of maintaining a 4.0 GPA all throughout junior high school and high school? I had maintained good grades all throughout elementary school, even though I went to a different school every grade, even though I went to a different location every year. I always had good grades. So what was it about this transition phase where I'm going to a junior high school, a middle school, that all of a sudden I just believed that there's probably not going to be a way I was going to maintain the 4.0? Or what was it about the idea that I have to maintain a 4.0 for the next 7 years? Maybe that was it. Maybe I just felt like that was an overwhelming task. Or maybe I just felt like I didn't want to do 7 years of high school and mid-junior high school and then do 4 more years of college, right? Looking down the pipe at 11 more years and at 12 years old, maybe that didn't sound like something I wanted to hear. I really don't know, but as I look back on it, I know without a doubt I did not have the faith in myself to want to commit that level of work. And nor did I have somebody, I think, feeding into me, telling me, hey, Gary, you deserve to go to college because you are really intelligent. You have a lot to offer the world. And even if you don't get the 4.0 GPAs or the best grades, we're going to figure it out as long as it's what you want to do. Now, if it's not what you want to do, it's a different conversation, right? But that's not the conversation that I got. And really, it was that one conversation. Never did we ever have that conversation again. Ever. I never brought it up again. And I started making decisions that would go completely in different directions in my life. My fourth factor was I really wanted to fit in, right? I first got involved with youth gangs, believe it or not, in elementary school, right? When we lived down in Phoenix, Arizona, I was in second grade, and I remember being exposed to different kinds of neighborhoods. And the neighborhood that I lived on, there was little neighborhoods of groups of kids that were just these little street gang things, right? It was the 90s, right? Actually, it was the late 80s, right? And so when I remember I went to 7th grade, 1989 to 1990. And I had lived in South Salt Lake City about a year at that point. And when I went to junior high school was when I really started feeling the need to get connected with the kids in my neighborhood. And I wanted to do something that would signify that I was actually a part of something. And I had done Boy Scouts. I had done church involvement. Matter of fact, I was very good at all those things. I was very good at Boy Scouts of America. I did a lot. I almost earned up to Eagle Scout before I was 14 years old. I stopped one rank before Eagle Scout just because I got so involved and running around with the kids in my neighborhood that I left scouting behind to get involved with my neighborhood crew. And so when I look back at my life, I started hanging around with people whose values did not require me to be successful at school. Matter of fact, they required me to be successful outside of school. That's when I started skipping school. I remember being in ninth grade and my mom and dad sent me to go live with my grandmother for half of my school year because I was getting myself into so much trouble at school and getting into already risky situations at 14 years old that it was just going down the wrong path. And then I come back not even 6-7 months later to go to junior high school in 10th grade and walked right back into the opportunity where all my friends were there with open arms, and I felt like I'd returned home again. And I wasn't going back to school because I wanted an education. I was going back to school because that was where all the people were at that I felt like were my future, right? I felt like my future was going to be with these people that I was hanging out with after school and during the evenings and during the nights. And I see it to this day. I see kids that are 15, 16, 17 years old that are so loyal to their friends. My first ship, USS Bellawood, I've never had such good friends, I don't think, ever again as my first shipmates, right? Because you're young, you have no family, you've got nothing really to do but to hang out, and you just enjoy hanging out with each other all the time. And so when you're a young person, your friends are everything, right? But having the wrong kind of people in your corner that are encouraging you to do the things that are maybe not in accordance with what your parents want you to do, in accordance with what you really want for yourself. I mean, those are the things you got to think about. But I will tell you, at 15, 16 years old, I wanted to be a proud member of my neighborhood, and I wanted to be well known for being someone that was dead serious, right? That was my goal. And I wanted to be a leader, even though I wanted to be a leader for the things that were not probably the best things. I know they weren't the best things. So go to high school, 10th grade. Again, I'm not focused on going to school for an education. No. I'm not going to school because I believe that education is a path for me in my future. Oh, no, I'm going to school because, number one, it's something to do. Number two, it's where everyone's going to be at. That's where all the girls are. That's where my friends are. That's where the people that are not our friends are at. It's really where the action is at. You know, it's just, that's why I'm going. I'm not going because I believe in myself and I'm trying to generate future opportunities. No, those are not the reasons why I'm going to school. But I am going partially because I want to fit in. I want to be a part of my team that I'm running with at that age, 10th grade. I had no belief that there was a reason for the organized education. I'm going to tell you, it's just the truth. And I see it every day in these kids, and I saw it when I was in the military. People would be in their educational institutions or they'd be in the service, and they would completely have lost focus as to why they were there and what they were doing. And so I could always relate because I've been there, right? And what caused me to change? Number one, I went to 4 high schools in a year and a half. So 10th, 11th, and 12th grade was the high school in Utah that I went to, where I went to my high school years. 10th grade, I made it through 1 school. Started 11th grade. By not even the end of the first quarter, they removed me from the first school, sent me to the secondary alternative school. Went to that school, didn't even last a day or two because of how much trouble I was going to be for everybody, me included, because of the life I'd created for myself. Left that school, moved back down to where my parents had moved to. My parents had moved over the summer, and I had chosen to not live with them at that point. So I was essentially living on my own. But I moved back to my parents' house because they said, hey, come down here and go to high school. Went to that high school down where my parents lived, got arrested, got escorted out of that school, eventually went up to where my aunt lived at, went to school with my aunt. When the school found out that I was living with my aunt and not my mom and dad, they removed me from the school because they did a poll on my record. They kind of saw what I was known for in the neighborhoods that I came from. Even though it was a completely different city, they wanted nothing to do with what I had been doing back in South Salt Lake. Check, roger that. Looking back on it all, I completely understand. But that was the last time I was in a high school such as that. And there you go. I'm 16 and a half years old, and I'm out of high school. 4 schools, a year and a half, and what am I gonna freaking do? There's just no clear answer at that point in time. I remember my dad said, hey, Gare, if you're not gonna be at high school, you need to go to community college. So I went and enrolled in 2 community college classes, paid the money. The first college class I took was for typing, which to this day I credit that typing class for my abilities behind the computer keyboard. I'm pretty good at it still. Recruiting duty helped me with that. Of course, all my administrative work in the Navy, but that typing class really set me up. The second class was like a history class, and I would never go to that class. I would just go to the student lounge and I would go to sleep. And I remember when the little grade thing came out for the class, I passed the typing class and I failed the history class. And my dad just said, you're wasting our money. You're wasting your money to go to some college and you're not even going to. The hell are you going to do, Gary? And that was eventually when I moved. I mean, I'd moved out the first time when I was 15. And I was then in and out my parents' house. But it was after that college escapade that I really just decided that school wasn't going to be for me. When I eventually met the Navy recruiter, I was 18 years old at the time, living in North Ogden, which is a city in Utah. And they had to put me in adult education in order for me to get enough high school credits completed so that I could take the GED test. Because when I joined the United States Navy, I had no high school diploma, not a high school graduate, and it was required for me to get the GED to be passed and get a high enough score on the ASVAB to be able to ship out for basic training. So I did adult education for about 8 months. That recruiter would have to hunt me down, throw me in his car, drive me to the high school. So my fifth high school, Washington High School, up in Ogden, Utah, where I attended adult education with a bunch of people in their mid-30s and 40s trying to get their high school education. And that's where I got the credits done, because in Utah, you could not take the GED test unless you had a certain number of high school credits completed. What's funny is I ended up joining the United States Navy, right? And thank God I did, because it saved my life. And I'm going to talk many more stories about my time in the service and kind of how that all played out. But I will tell you what, it was an answer to a blessing that was probably my parents' prayers, right? And my own internal prayers. I'll talk about that someday, about why I chose to join the military, because that was a whole story in itself. But I remember I'd done good in the Navy. I got selected to go be a Navy recruiter. They sent me down to Clearwater, Florida. I did 3 years as a Navy recruiter, and I checked out at NRD Miami, which is Navy Recruiting District Miami. I'm a second class petty officer at the time, and I was going through my service record. And now, after being a recruiter for 3 years, I had learned what all the paperwork was in our service records. So here I am going through my service record, my own service record that I'd never really looked at before. And as I'm going through it all, I find some paperwork from the state of Utah that says my high school diploma was ready for pickup. And I've been a recruiter for 3 years, so I knew that there was like generic kinds of diplomas you could get that would say, state of Utah high school diploma, but it was really just a GED that made you feel better about yourself, right? So I called the lady up in the state of Utah, and I said, ma'am, my name is Gary Wise. I'm in the United States Navy. I'm a second class petty officer, and I was just wondering if you have a high school diploma with my name on it. And she says, hold on, wait 1 minute. She goes and pulls up her files. She comes back. She says, yeah, I got it for you right here. Where do you want me to send it? And I was like, shut up. No way do you have a high school diploma with my name on it. I had my GED. My GED was framed and is still framed to this day in my classroom. I had my GED. It was framed at that time by my recruiter desk. And she said, no. It says Washington High School across the top, Gary Wise. And I said, how do I have a high school diploma? She said, well, in the state of Utah, the GED doesn't just satisfy the high school graduation requirement, but it also provides you with a certain number of high school credits. And if you had enough high school credits before you took the test, then it would also equal a diploma. So I gave her the $5 over the phone. She sent me my diploma in the mail. And if you come into my classroom now, and it was always the same way on the ship at all my offices, you would see my GED, then you would see my high school diploma, then above that you're going to see my associate's degree, my bachelor's degree, my graduation certificate from the Senior Enlisted Academy, and then my master's degree, which is something that I'm so proud of, because when I came to the military as a high school dropout, as a young man who did not know, what my life was going to be, my clarity was not there. I didn't know what the belief was going to be for my own future. I didn't have the faith in anything, right? I just didn't. The only faith I had was in my friends. The only faith I had was in my reality, and that was unfortunately a lie, right? The devil is a lie. We've all heard that before, and that's just the truth. I didn't have, I had the desire to fit in with the wrong people. I didn't have a group of people around me that wanted to see me be successful. I mean, I had my family, my aunts, my uncles, my cousins. They all loved me, but they weren't the ones that I was with 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Nor were they the ones that I wanted to know about the things that I was doing. I wasn't proud of who I was. It wasn't until I met my wife, which is another great story I'll tell you someday, that I really got on track. And last but not least, I did not have an appreciation for what the institution could provide me. Even with the military, it was probably a good 5 or 6 years in the military before I finally locked in with what the Navy could offer me and what I could better offer the Navy. But man, once you figure that out, once you can figure out how the organization you're a part of can not only support you, but can return your energy back to you and then you to it, you are going to find so much freaking success. And so I just wanted to share this story with you guys. I know a lot of people that watch this are, especially my students. I've shared this with you all before, but I'll share it again. There's going to be future students that come to my classroom to hear it. When I talk with you about the reasons why you got to pay attention in school, don't be a zombie. Don't just come there and pretend like it doesn't matter. Don't just come there and act like it's only socialization hour. No, this is networking. This is preparing for life. This is learning how to work with other people. This is learning how to discipline your mind to not allow yourself to miss opportunities. This is an opportunity to get educated, because God, what happens if you graduate high school, but you still can't pass an academic exam because you didn't ever try to learn? These are all my real concerns for the children that I work with, for the children I want to mentor, for the parents out there that are raising kids that are about the same age range, for my own kids, because I'm a parent of 2 young boys, ages 10 and 17. These are all the concerns. And I had these exact same concerns for people when they joined the military, when they would come to my ship. And I wanted to make sure they would get the best out of us, right? Out of us as an organization, being when I was in the United States Navy. Now it's my organization being my Navy Junior ROTC program. I want them to get the best out of us. But in return for that to happen, they owe us the best that they can provide. And if we can do that, then we're all going to learn how to work together. Man, I really appreciate you if you took the time to watch this video. I really appreciate you watching any of the stuff that I'm putting out there. I don't know where this journey is going to take us. I live in Ocala, Florida. I'm a leadership development speaker, instructor, trainer, just person who loves helping people. I love working with the public school system. I love teaching high school. I love working with my cadets. I love working with my family. And I love putting out this content. I guess that's what we'll call it, because it is what it is, right? It is what it is. So if you like it, hey, you know what? Do the thing that we're supposed to do, right? Like the YouTube page, freaking hit the bell, subscribe, all those things, so that I can please do a better job getting my message out to the world and hopefully helping someone that needs to hear it. Thank you all very much. Once again, I'm Gary Wise, and I really appreciate your time. Y'all have a great, blessed Thursday afternoon or evening.